But so the draft's coming. We're talking players that we cannot leave our draft without. These are guys predominantly from rounds 1 and 2. So let's get right to it. Nate, who is a round 1 player that you're not going to leave without? If you watch the live streams at all this past draft weekend, probably won't be a shocker here, but who you got, Nate?
Yeah, this is not a shocker to most people. I've been getting this guy in round 1 when I can before. I'm doing it now. It's only stocks up for Lad McConkey, going the second pick in the second round to the Chargers, the new wide receiver 1 for Justin Herbert. And he's walking into possibly one of the best situations of any of these rookie wide receivers, where his target competition is Josh Palmer on the last year of his rookie deal, a very disappointing Quentin Johnston, and then Simi Fehoko and Darius Davis, I believe.
Oh, easy on Simi. Come on, man.
I mean, Brandon Rice got drafted there, but not until the 7th round.
I mean, way later than we expected, right?
Way later than we expected.
Crazy.
I thought he might have been like a late day 2 pick, early day 3 pick. So falling to the 7th was something I did not expect. But Lad McConkey goes there. And look, we've all talked about this offense with Jim Harbaugh, with Greg Roman. It's going to be a very different offense than it's been in the past. A lot more run-based, most likely, which means just overall less passing volume. But for Lad McConkey, I'm not worried about that because, like I said, he is the number 1 wide receiver there for targets by far. He's going to, have a great target share. And even if that volume is not very high overall, I think the target's going to be funneled to him in such a majority that he's still going to be able to put up top 24 numbers his rookie season. He's such a great separator, route runner. He's going to fit this offense perfectly. Think of the Roman Wilson in Jim Harbaugh's Michigan. Think of how Marquise Brown was used with Greg Roman back in Baltimore in 2021. Marquise Brown saw 139 targets. So there's plenty of room to go around for Lad McConkey. I don't know about the other guys, but Lad McConkey, I like his role in this offense. I like the potential it brings. I like the fact that he's mixed up with Justin Herbert long-term. I love that. Love the draft capital. Love everything that happened. He's my wide receiver 4 off the board right now, and I can pick him up. Dynasty Rewind ADP at the 110. Most places you look, he's going to be in the second round, early second round for a lot of people. So picking him up at the end of the first, I love that deal. Also, if you need a running back, I like Jonathon Brooks too, but wide receiver, I love Lad McConkey in the first. Some players I would move to pick up a late first-round pick and go after Lad McConkey. Jaden Reed. Hey, I love Jaden Reed, but I'm willing to move Jaden Reed for Lad McConkey. A lot better target share for Lad McConkey moving forward than Jaden Reed. Another player, Deebo Samuel, who might be on the move soon, but give me Lad McConkey.
I agree. And that's why in round 1, I'm going after J.J. McCarthy. Dynasty Rewind ADP, the 104. I think I can speak for all of us on the crew here when we're probably a little higher than
we are
most people out there. Actually, there was a draft that I'm in today, and I took J.J. McCarthy at the 105. I was quite happy about it, too. I took him over Drake May.
I get it. I have those guys in the same tier, but I think there's more upside with May, but a much better floor with McCarthy right now.
Nate alluded to it. He's set up for success right away. Justin Jefferson, you got Jordan Addison, TJ Hawkinson. When he comes back, we know that's not going to be right away. This is a great core for him to throw to. I like Kevin O'Connell. He did good things with Kirk Cousins. I'm not saying that J.J. McCarthy is Kirk Cousins, but, I think he has a lot of upside, tough in the pocket, can make every throw just because he didn't really in college. He wasn't asked to. This is a guy who goes out, does everything that the coach asks him to. Coaches love this dude. The 104 is a little bit harder to get, but if you need a quarterback, you have to pay up. Nate, you know that as well as I do. We're talking moving guys like Brandon Ayuk. This is our value around keep trade cut. Devonta Smith, Tua Tagovailoa. Okay, this is what the 104 costs right now. Some people aren't sold on Tua long term, even though he's been proven to be more productive than what we think J.J. McCarthy could be. You might have to try to tier up from if you're at the 110 or something like that, and you really have your heart set on J.J. McCarthy, might have to add a second, maybe even a projected late 25 first next year. It's what you pay for potential franchise quarterbacks.
Yeah, and you might be able to get JJ at the 106, 107. I think there's plenty of drafts where you can make that happen. So if you're at the 110, I think putting a second on there, you probably can move up to the 107 or so.
Yeah,
probably have your choice of quarterback.
If you're not in the league with us, you can definitely.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know about the Tua trade. I think it's kind of splitting hairs there. We've already seen it with Tua.
If you're a win now team, I'm not going to move Tua.
Yeah. Because part of the allure of J.J. McCarthy is you have a safe quarterback, an accurate quarterback who is in fun, exciting offense with potential.
Right.
You can say the same thing about Tua. He fits that exact bill, and he's already doing it. So, I lean Tua just because he's already proven, and it's a very similar situation, but we're just a little bit farther ahead. So I lean Tua there straight up. But I think if you can get JJ McCarthy plus for Tua, I would be absolutely down to do that.
Nate, who's your round 2 player?
All right, round 2 player, which you can actually pick up in the 3rd round in a lot of drafts right now because people are sleeping on him. I've seen him ranked as the RB4 in most places, but for me, he's the RB3. Marshawn Lloyd out of USC going to Green Bay. I know Bob was pretty happy about this pick. Marshawn Lloyd's explosive. He has a 3-down skill set. Not saying he's going to be a workhorse back with 80% touches. He's not really built necessarily for that, neither is the modern NFL, but playing behind Josh Jacobs, he's going to have time to develop more, continue to learn. He's going to get some touches. I'm sure he will. And he can be very efficient with a couple of touches he gets. But overall, I don't think you're going to see a ton of production the rookie year. I think maybe a top 40 back if Josh Jacobs misses some time or something like that overall in the season with some of the time he's going to get. But moving forward, Josh Jacobs, he's on a 4-year deal. It's actually more like a 1-year deal and then team options. They have a $6+ million signing bonus, roster bonus that Josh Jacobs will be owed at the end of next offseason. So they have next offseason to choose, hey, do they want to continue to pay Josh Jacobs a lot of money, or do they want to move forward with Marshawn Lloyd? Now, they could always keep Josh Jacobs for a 2nd year, and then Marshawn Lloyd is another year behind Josh Jacobs. But I don't think Josh Jacobs is going to be there more than 2 years. That's pretty clear by the contract. It's definitely a 1 or 2 year deal, more so than a 3 or 4. With that, you get a great value on Marshawn Lloyd, who I've comped to DeAndre Swift. I think they have a very similar skill set, the ability to run and have explosive plays on the ground, but also be a good receiver and get downfield, make things happen on screen. So Marshawn Lloyd bringing that versatile skill set to the really fun and exciting Green Bay Packers offense. I love this pairing. Right now, like I said, you probably can pick him up in the early 3rd, which for a potentially starting running back on an exciting offense next year is a great deal. DR ADP, we have him at the 209, which is kind of where I value him, somewhere around a mid-second, late second there. So I like our value. I think it's a great value when you get into other drafts where you can pick him up in the 3rd round. Some players I would look to move off of, especially if not a competing team. Maybe a move off Jalen Warren, who honestly at this point he's behind Najee. I think that Arthur Smith offense, while Jalen Warren's going to get opportunities, I think Najee is going to be the guy there for this year. And then you probably can get something on top of Marshawn Lloyd or the 209 early 3rd if you're moving Jalen Warren, so you can get plus something on top of that. Some other players I might move for Marshawn Lloyd, Jerry Jeudy, who I'm not a big believer in the Cleveland Browns offense moving forward. They're going to have to prove it to me first. And then also Zach Moss, a quiet winner of this draft because the Bengals didn't draft a running back.
And
but
Chase Brown.
We've heard that it's Chase Brown's backfield, and Zach Moss is there to complement him. As much as I like what Zach Moss did last year, I would much rather have Marshawn Lloyd moving forward.
Yeah, I don't hate that. And at the back end of the 2nd round, a guy that in a year or 2 could be a productive starting running back. I think that's a great spot. But let's go to kind of the front of the 2nd round. And my guy is Trey Benson, Dynasty round ADP to 203. I've been kind of pounding the table for Trey Benson for a while. And not everybody's on the bandwagon, but that's okay. The bandwagon is big. It's bountiful. There's plenty of room for everybody else. He's behind James Conner. Is James Conner a good NFL back? Yes, he is. Starting to creep closer to 30. He's had injury history, but I do think Trey Benson, even if James Conner is healthy, is good enough to get on the field and take some snaps away. Now, by take some snaps away, I'm not talking 50%, probably 30, 35 sounds about right.
Sure.
But bringing up their depth chart, not the Atlanta Falcons depth chart, Mike.
Hey, DJ Dallas is there now. I know that.
Well, it gets better. James Conner obviously is the number 1. We got Trey Benson. Then we still have Amari DiMercado kicking around. DJ Dallas is there, like you said. Tony Jones and the ghost of Michael Carter. So I don't think this is going to be a Kendre Miller situation like you saw with the Saints. He had 2 quality backs in front of him. Trey Benson just has 1. They have a head coach that is a defensive guy. They like to run the football. Cardinals would have run the football more last year if they had some consistency behind James Conner. I think they got their consistency right now with Trey Benson. And to get the 203, valued around keep Trey cut, Terry McLaurin, DeAndre Swift, Deshaun Watson. You can trade back from the 110 to 112-ish if you want a running back, but you don't want to overdraft one. Maybe you could pick up probably not another late second on top of it. You could try for it. Maybe a first next year if you want.
Yeah.
Something like that. Some sort of trade back situation. Let's get back to your player, round 1 or round 2. You go ahead, you pick whichever one you want.
Yeah, one player I'm loving to pick up right now is Jonathon Brooks. Usually you're going to have to pick him up in the first round. He's pretty much consensus RB1. He was the only running back to go in the second round. He goes to a place where, yes, there's Miles Sanders in front of them. There's Chuba Hubbard, but once Jonathon Brooks is fully healthy, which sounds like he's going to be able to participate in training camp, he should be pretty much good to go by week 1. I'm sure this will be somewhat of a ramp-up period. But I think by the end of the season, you're going to see Jonathon Brooks be the workhorse running back for this offense. I'm buying into the Panthers offense, Mike. I love what they did to surround Bryce Young with talent, going out and getting Deontay Johnson this offseason, and then investing significant draft capital, in a wide receiver like Xavier Legette, getting a really good tight end in Jatavion Sanders, getting a great running back in Jonathon Brooks. I love the core that they're putting around him. It's something that was definitely missing last year. So I'm buying into this Panthers offense. Not going to be a top 10, of course, but being more efficient than they were last year as one of the worst offenses. So I think with that comes Jonathon Brooks' ascension into a more steady Dynasty running back. We're going to see him become, I think, Jonathon Brooks has top 10 upside in Dynasty because of, the workload that I project for him with the Panthers. And I think he's that talented as well. You're not really getting an injury discount. The NFL did not give him an injury discount, so you're not really going to get an injury discount in rookie drafts. He's going, for us, DR ADP 111. It looks pretty similar to that in most other drafts as well. You have to pay up for Jonathon Brooks, but in this class where there's not a lot of running backs to pay up for, I think it's worth it. You get someone, like I said, who has that top 10 upside as a running back, and I don't know if anyone else in this draft class really has that kind of upside. So, you're paying for what you're getting, but you're paying for what you're getting. You're getting a really good running back that's worth a late first. In a lot of other drafts, someone like this would be picked up in the mid first. So being able to pick him up at the late first is actually kind of a blessing. There's so many good wide receivers, so many quarterbacks in this draft class that is pushing down the running back that is actually going to really matter from this draft class, and that's Jonathon Brooks. So I like picking him up here at the late first. Some players I would move for him right now, try to get that 111, 110 to pick up Jonathon Brooks. Stephon Diggs, someone I think, you should be able to get a late first for. Everyone's pretty into that Texans offense. You might have to add something to him depending on, who you're moving to. They might consider him more of like a really early second, somewhere on that line there. Another player, though, Javonte Williams. What can I add to Javonte Williams, who at Aldrich Estime was drafted to the Broncos, but in day 3. Javonte Williams is on the last year of his rookie contract. I don't think that offense is going to be super efficient as much as I love Bo Nix. So what can I add to Javonte Williams, a second-round pick, 25 second-round pick or something like that, to move up into the late first and get Jonathon Brooks, upgrade that position, especially if I'm not a competing team. But even if I'm a competing team, I think Jonathon Brooks is going to be productive enough by midseason where I'm not going to be missing a guy like Javonte Williams.
I do have a round 1 or 2 player for you, and that's Jalen Polk. Another guy that I think the Dynasty Rewind as a consensus has been a little bit higher on. I'll give you a good example. His Dynasty Rewind ADP is the 204. I just saw him go off the board in a super flex rookie draft at the 301. There's your range.
Oh my gosh.
There's your range right there. Yes. Fortunately, I was not able to get him. That being said, Jalen Polk, man, hands for days. Do you think it's the landing spot that are kind of...
You know what it is, Mike, which blows my mind? It's people trying to be too smart.
Yeah.
Trying to get too cute with it. And they're going off of their pre-draft biases and how they had Javon Baker ranked over Jalen Polk.
And I like Javon Baker.
I like Javon Baker too, but I like Jalen Polk more before the draft. And then here we are. The NFL says, hey, we're going to draft Polk in the second round, and we're going to leave Baker until the 4th round. And people are still out here trying to convince themselves that they know better. I can't believe that is happening. I can't believe people are even picking, what's one thing to say, okay, well, don't grab Polk and just grab Baker later. That's one thing. I don't hate it. I don't agree with it, but I don't hate it. It's a decent strategy. But some people are taking Baker over Polk. And that just blows my mind, taking that kind of risk with a player that, number one, I don't think is as good as Polk. And number two, the NFL doesn't either, obviously. The Patriots don't. The Patriots think Polk is better. Why don't you?
Yeah, I agree. And like I said, I've been a Javon Baker guy since the first time I started scouting him, but I like Jalen Polk better. better route runner. I think he's more physical. The hands. It's like he's got stickum on his gloves, which I know he doesn't. Don't overthink this. I don't think the Patriots are going to be the quote-unquote proverbial bad landing spot for quarterbacks and wide receivers much longer. Bill Belichick is gone. Yes, it's the same owner. It's a different coach. Don't overthink it. Hey, look, the fact of the matter is right now you're going to have to pay up. He's valued around guys like Cooper Kupp, although I think if you sold Cooper Kupp, it would be, this is just keep trade cut value. It would be the 204 plus. You're not going to trade. Please don't trade Cooper Kupp straight up for the 204. Don't do that. Hollywood Brown, Amari Cooper, two guys value very similarly on keep trade cut. But Jalen Polk, if I can get him, I'm going to for sure.
I love this, Mike. I'm glad you brought it up too, because I had to talk about the atrocity of ranking Javon Baker over Jalen Polk.
Yeah, and look, if there's something to be said about planting your flag on your guy. I have no problem with that, but
look, it happens. It happens sometimes where a team double dips the position and the second guy ends up being better. I'm familiar with it because the Ravens picked up. Well, yeah, there you go. The Ravens picked up Hayden Hurst in the first round. They picked up Mark Andrews in the third, and look how that worked out.
Yeah.
Now they probably shouldn't have picked up a 26-year-old tight end in the first round anyway.
Well,
but but it happens. But those are the outliers. Got to go Polk here.
Nate, who is your next player, round 1 or 2?
Yeah, this is a player that you can pick up in the second round. I'm seeing him drop. I'm seeing him anywhere from the beginning of the second to the late second, and that's Xavier Legette out of South Carolina. Someone that on tape I absolutely loved. Very, very talented. Had an incredible breakout season this past year for South Carolina, but it took him 5 years to do it. So there's a lot of red flags around that, around the analytical profile. But if you take that away and you just look at the play on the field, he's one of the best wide receivers in the draft. And I understand why the Panthers wanted to move up from 33 to 32 to make sure that they got him. He's a big physical receiver. And while they had a lot of question marks about Xavier Legette going into this draft, he goes to a place where he's not going to be asked to be the wide receiver one. And he's not even going to be asked to be the main separator for this team. Deontay Johnson is there, and he's going to do that extremely well. And Canales, their new head coach, was talking about how they're going to use Xavier Legette. And he talked about using him on crossers, on flats, on in the backfield, on sweeps, on post, down the field. Basically, what he was saying is, I'm going to use the big fast man with big fast routes. I'm not going to ask him to run comebacks and digs. I'm not going to ask him to run, really extensive routes. That's what they did with A.J. Brown in Tennessee when he first got there. He was big, he was physical, he was fast. Didn't ask him to run, a full route tree because he just wasn't able to do that at that point. And look how he's developed. Now, I don't know if Xavier Legette's going to become A.J. Brown, but I like the fact that they're going to use him in the way that he should be used, and not try to pigeonhole him into a different kind of role. One thing I talk about pretty often is, while I wasn't a big believer in Quentin Johnston, it certainly did not help out his development. When he was forced into a wide receiver one role for that team after Keenan Allen went down, Mike Williams went down. I've always talked about Quentin Johnston would be better as a big slot. And it sounds like the Panthers are going to be willing to use Xavier Legette as an X. They're also going to put him in the slot. They're going to move him around, help him develop, not ask him to do something he can't do. And I like that a lot, Mike. I think there's a lot of potential with that. And at the 210 for DR ADP, and it's about the same in regular drafts, I think that's a pretty good value for what kind of potential he brings at that point. Once we get past like the 206, that top 20, the board really opens up. And the fact that Xavier Legette with his upside is still sitting there, I love it. Some players I'm moving for him out of the wide receiver position, aforementioned Quentin Johnston, if we can, for a late second. Jerry Jeudy, I've talked about him already as a sell candidate. At the tight end position, I would move a guy like Luke Musgrave or a tight end similar to that for a late second, especially if I can go get Xavier Legette. And some aging running backs, I would also move for a chance at a guy like Xavier Legette. Nick Chubb, despite the fact that they didn't draft anybody, the Browns, which is really interesting to me because I'm not sure if they have a running back of the future there. It's interesting.
Maybe.
And then Aaron Jones, who will probably have a pretty decent year, but what's he got after that? So
my round 1 or 2 guy, Ben Sinnott. I love the landing spot. He's going at the 207 right now, so middle of the second round. He could do everything well. We know this as a tight end. Great receiver, good yards after the catch ability, physical, good blocker as well. And all that's in front of him at that position is Zach Ertz. And Zach Ertz doesn't really move the needle for me anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't think I'd really even be interested in paying a fifth for him right now. Like, what are we doing here? You know what I mean? They have some other guys on the roster. like Cole Turner was going to be something at one point in time, if you remember. John Bates is kind of just a blocking tight end. Ben Sinnott, he could probably be the starter on this team by midseason, I would think.
I would definitely think so.
Yeah.
He's also the only second-round tight end, I believe, picked in this draft.
I believe you're right, because wasn't the next tight end, it wasn't Jatavian Sanders.
Tip Ryman in third.
Yeah, I can't believe I didn't put him on the ship. But I would rather have Jatavian Sanders. But still, if you want to get to 207, right now you're going to have to move guys like, hey, if you're a believer, you can move Pat Freiermuth to get Ben Sinnott, Daniel Jones, Jerry Jeudy, a guy we've been trading away all episode. But hey, if you want to know more about guys that you should draft, patreon.com/Dynasty Rewind. You could do a week for free. You could sign up for the $10 tier. You can get a draft guide for free. If you want to just buy the draft guide, payup.com/Dynasty Rewind. Get that kind of roster review. Just do it up. So until next time, for Nate, I'm your host, Michael Bauer. Thank you for listening.